This pattern is Amy's ant. This one happens to be tied in dark brown and tan with an olive chenille underbody. The one we're going to tie today is going to be a black and cinnamon one. So we're going to start with a hook. This is the 5262, and we're going to start. As you can see, I put a pretty good thread base down. That's because we're going to actually have to glue right on there, so I wanted to have something for it to stick to. First thing is we're going to cut some foam, some tan foam, and we're going to just notch it on the top. To measure this, we're going to take about the gap hook of the hook and extend it past the back of the fly, or the back of the hook, where we're going to tie it in. Tie it in with one round wrap, pull directly towards you, another wrap towards you, another wrap towards you. All these wraps are right on top of each other. Then we're going to take some black foam and we're going to actually notch it this way. And those little points are going to just barely extend past the end of the foam that we just tied in. And we're going to do the same technique where we're going to go once around, same tie-in point, and towards you. Once around, pull towards you, once around. Now you have that tied in, and it kind of will flare up. What we're going to do then is move our thread very quickly forward and leave about a quarter of the hook shank in the front. At this point, we're going to actually put some Zap-A-Gap on. This is going to hold this fly really together pretty good. So we're just going to take just a little bit, not too much. And if you got a little too much on there like I do right there, just take a little stick there and put it there. And we're going to lay the tan foam down and we're going to tie it in up here. We're going to leave about a quarter hook shank in the front. Then we're going to wrap this back, just palmering the thread kind of, and holding down that foam. Once I get here, I kind of go back over it again, and then back to the back of the fly again. So now we're at the back of the fly. I'm going to cut some of this foam off that's in the front because it's just in the way. I'm going to tie in two legs right back here at the foam part. You put a loop, you tie it in with one turn, and then you adjust your legs the way you want them. And then we have to do the other side. So we're going to come in, catch this one turn, and then adjust them accordingly. At this point, you got to get this stuff out of the way. So what I do is I pull this back like this, try to pinch everything, and I use one of these little hair clips from your significant other in that, and I just try to capture that material back there so it's a little bit out of the way. Now we're going to tie in a piece of brown hackle. The size of this hackle doesn't matter at all because we're going to actually be trimming it, and you want to get it right up to the base before the foam tie-in. It's tied in. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to dub all of this, and in this case, since we're doing a black and cinnamon one, we're going to use a color of dubbing that is close to cinnamon in my eyes. I'm going to dub it on, and it's going to be fairly, not fairly tight, just kind of loose. We're going to anchor it with that that feather. So So we just kind of make it a little even going forward. Do a little bit more dubbing. We're just covering up all of that. Once you have this dubbed all the way to the front, what we're going to do is take this hackle and we're just going to palmer it forward towards the eye of the hook. So we get up here, just going to tie it off. At this point, we're going to actually trim all of these hackle hairs off this fly. And we're not going to go totally flush, but we're going to try to get as much of it down there as possible. We're just going to leave a little bit of stubble on this fly. Try not to cut any legs. That'll be a bad thing. Okay. At this point, we can take the hair clip off. You can maybe readjust your legs a little bit, possibly. And then we're going to take this black foam and move it forward and just tie it right in that same ending spot. A couple turns. Okay. I like to cut my legs down quite a bit at this point. There we go. Alright, so my legs are cut. At this point, we're going to take the thread, and I like to just go all the way up to the eye of the hook. We're going to tie it in there, and then we're going to cross hatch over it through this whole section. We're going to take the black and do the same thing. Tie it in, come back. Alright, this is going to be the tie-in point for a bunch of materials at this point. Now we're going to take some pearl crystal flash and we're going to tie it in pretty long, because what we want here is to be able to fold this back over. So you want to make sure this extends past the body. Just one tie-in, and we're going to grab it. At this point, we're going to grab it. All this other stuff. We're just going to bring it back over top of the fly. And tie it all in up here. Catch it. A couple wraps to secure it. I'm going to cut some of this black off. We don't need all of it. Alright. Now we're going to tie in some yearling elk hair. A pretty decent clump of it. So it might look like this. Then we're going to clean out all of the hair that's in there, all the under hair, because what's going to happen is we're going to stack it. So once you get it all cleaned out, put it in your stacker and stack there. Okay. We're going to take this clump and we're going to measure it back. We want it to be just about to the end of the fly back there. So once we get it on, we're just going to switch hands and tie it in right here, right on top. Pulling straight down, straight down. Kind of work your way up to the front of where the foam is tied in. This is going to be a little bit messy when you get ready to release it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is try to cut all of these butts right down to the base of the fly as close as we can. I said this gets a little bit messy doing it this way, but the deer hair is tied in, or elk hair is tied in really tight, so we're in a good spot then. Got to remember this is going to be fished pretty aggressively and hit aggressively by the trout, so you want things tied in really well. Okay, now we have all the butts out of the way. What we're going to do is we're going to dub back to where the deer hair is tied in. This is just to really cover up this excess deer hair, the butts, and any thread wraps. So get some dubbing on here. And we're going to just dub. And we're going backwards to where the deer hair was tied in. At this point, we're going to take the black and we're going to bend it over, pull it a little tight, and we're going to tie it in right on top, right there, at that same spot. We have this excess black. What we're going to do is cut it into the form of a point, and by doing that, so it looks something similar to that. This is going to become our total tie-in point, but we need to put some front legs on, so we're going to do it the same way we did the back legs. We're going to put them on the side towards me with two wraps, and then the far side with a couple wraps. Right at that same tie-in point. At this point, I like to go ahead and trim the front legs down, mostly so I'm able to whip finish it. And I'll cut this down a little bit more. Okay. Now we're going to whip finish right here at that tie-in point. And we're going to cut the thread off. We want to cut this foam in the front just a little bit past where the hook is, the eye of the hook, and then we're just going to square it off by just trimming the edges a little bit, the corners, cutting the corners off. Last thing, we want to get all of this crystal flash, and we want to cut it just a little bit past the elk hair. Catch it all. So we want to be just past the elk hair a little bit. And lastly, trim the rest of these legs down. And that is the black and cinnamon Amy's ant.